So it has a brew. So what I thought I'd talk about, I mean, there's been a few things in the news which kind of deserve attention, but I think this deserves more attention than anything else. And this is Steve Ballmer stepping down as the CEO of Microsoft, which is good and bad for the company. In actual fact, when Steve Ballmer, when this news came out, the share price for Microsoft jumped 9%, which is quite funny. So I suppose if you had a bit of insider knowledge there, you could have made a bit of money. But it's kind of quite interesting. I mean, I think personally it needs to happen. I don't think Ballmer is the best person to lead Microsoft. Don't get me wrong, he's a brilliant bloke. I think he's just, because he's completely utterly nuts. And this might just be a stage persona or whatever, but he's an absolute nutcase on stage. And I mean, if you've seen his developers thing, it was absolutely hilarious. That was way back. I think in the 1990s, maybe early 2000s. And he's been with Microsoft since 1980. And he took over. I think as CEO. Did he take over CEO in 2000? Or he was just below Bill Gates in 2000. But he's been with the company for ages, and I think what's happened is, especially since Bill Gates has left, things have stagnated. What Microsoft have tried to do is try to play catch up with the market and not succeeded. That's one of the good things. I mean, Apple. I mean, Steve Wozniak did there's like an article back there. Steve Wozniak did a kind of like a Q&A with the BBC. What Steve Wozniak actually said was Microsoft are resting on the laurels, resting on the customer base they built up years and years ago, and not looking at trying to get new business. But having said that, Windows is still grabbing some of that, grabbing back a lot of the market nicked by Apple. Because originally what happened was Microsoft were all about businesses, and that was kind of it. They've got Active Directory nailed down, they've got Windows Server nailed down, they've got all that stuff nailed down. Businesses use them, brilliant. The consumer used them because that was pretty much the only thing on the market. They were reasonably cheap. PCs were reasonably cheap in comparison to Apple Macs. And so consumers used to buy Microsoft products, and if you had a little bit of money, you get a Mac. And if you were into media, you got a Mac as well. And then things changed because hardware changed for Windows. This has nothing to do with Microsoft. Microsoft's not, it's not Microsoft's doing this. Hardware changed, and hardware got faster and faster and changed quicker and quicker. And so a lot of the big movie studios, like Pixar and things like that, moved from Apple Macs to HP workstations and Dell workstations and custom-built machines, and then moved back to Windows. Into the Windows environment. Use things like Adobe CS6, Adobe 5.5, that sort of stuff, and moved into the Adobe workspace, which does work on Mac and PC, but because Mac hasn't moved with the market in terms of hardware, physical hardware, it's missed out. And so Microsoft have got a lot of that back. And although a lot of universities that deal with media stuff teach Macs, because they teach Adobe CS6 as opposed to Final Cut or anything like that. That is the industry standard now, and that is kind of where, which is why Windows has kind of grabbed a lot of that back, because before they didn't have that, and I think a lot of the OEMs are to thank for a lot of the innovations there. Microsoft definitely not, because at the end of the day they're a software company. They're not a hardware company, and they've tried to be, and it's not kind of gone so well. So Steve Wozniak is basically saying Microsoft are resting on the laurels, using the customer base they've built up years ago, in the 1990s, early 2000s, and aren't really advancing. The XP users, basically, they're not advancing things further. Windows 7 is a great testament to Microsoft from the consumer level. In terms of it grabbing back from, because Vista was effing awful, it really was bad, and it's grabbing back a lot of the Windows Vista failure that happened. And this is on a consumer level, because Windows 7 on a business level is a pain in the ass. If you've ever dealt with Windows 7 in a business environment, you know what I mean. Things like KMS is a pain in the ass. Things like single sign-on, something like that, is a pain in the ass. If you have multiple users on Windows 7, it's a pain in the ass. There's just a lot of things with Windows 7 that are a lot like sysprepping a machine under Windows 7 is a pain in the backside as well. Whereas sysprep on Windows XP machines, piece of piss. But on Windows 7 it was right pain in the ass. There was like a few other things that are really, really annoying with Windows 7 from a business point of view, from a customer point of view, and consumer point of view, and a usability point of view. It's brilliant because it looks great, it works great. Compatibility wise it's fantastic. 64-bit works well on it as well. Probably I think the first, apart from Windows Vista, I think that kind of used 64-bit, but the first Windows operating system that properly used 64-bit addressing, fantastic. And then obviously we went to Windows 8. Windows 8 for me personally is fantastic. For businesses maybe not, and for consumers I don't know. A lot of people, there's been a mixed sort of stuff. From a user's point of view, some people like it, some people don't. I think really what Microsoft have done and what Microsoft have failed at doing is grabbing the market from the likes of Apple, because that's what they wanted to do. They obviously wanted to slice the tablet market, and they thought, yeah, this is where computing's going. But actually, this isn't where computing's going, and they've actually, to their own admission, this isn't where computing's going. People still want to sit down, use a desktop, use a PC, use a laptop without the touch experience. They don't want that, because they have a tablet. Yeah, fair enough. Like if Microsoft had Windows 8, they had Windows 8 tablet and a Windows 8 desktop version. They kept the old start menu, and they revamped things like they have done with Windows 8. So better task manager, all that sort of stuff. All the great things that came with Windows 8. Better addressing, increased frame rates for games because it runs games so much better with Windows 8. I get about 5 to 10 frames a second faster under Windows 8 than I do Windows 7. Things like that, and performance improvements, it was singing, they'd be, laughing to the bank, because, the likes of the laptop users, the desktop users, would still be using Windows 8, they would upgrade to Windows 8, no problem at all. They wouldn't worry about the Metro interface, or whatever they're calling it this week. And, you'd still have that market for the tablets, and if that failed, it doesn't matter, because you've still got your desktop market to fall back on. But I think Microsoft have really lost touch with the users, and I think Steve Wozniak's right. Steve Wozniak also did say this, that people that are complaining about Apple about not innovating, they said mankind can't innovate every year, and that is very true. It's just the thing with Apple is the fact that they're not innovating is the key thing. I mean, that doesn't really matter because of course you can't innovate every year. Big innovations don't come every year. That's fine. But one thing I will criticise Apple for is they've never copied the market. If somebody else has done something, Apple don't go along and copy them, they go and do their own thing. It's like the Nexus 7 incident, they saw the Nexus 7 was doing really well, so they created their own iPad mini. Even after Tim Cook and Steve Jobs, when he was alive, said that, that's not, the iPad won't be getting smaller because it's pointless. They don't see the point of getting a smaller form factor. And, look at Google. I mean, especially with the Nexus 7. The Nexus 7 was designed for developers. That's what it was designed for. It wasn't designed for consumers. And yet, it's the best-selling Android tablet ever. Better than the Kindle, better than the Nook, better than anything. And that's because of its small form factor, because of its build quality, and because it's running Android. And Android, even though it's a developer version of Android, runs it damn well for a consumer level sort of device. It'll be interesting to see who takes over from Ballmer. It'll be interesting to see where Microsoft go. Because, to be honest, I think I wouldn't be surprised if 5 or 10 years down the line they're out of business. Because, and a lot of people are saying, oh, why? Well, as much as they've got things like business nailed down, business customers make up the majority, and they bring in tons of money. The Xbox One, complete and utter flop. The only people that are buying Xbox One devices are those that are fanboys that really like the Microsoft brand, that really like Xbox, and there you go. And really want the exclusive titles, maybe. But generally, the Xbox One has just been crap from the start. They've got rid of Don Matrick, whatever. But still, they're still playing catch up with that. I don't think that's going to take off. Obviously, the Windows Surface RT never took off. That never got anywhere. So, from a consumer level, they've not got really. They're losing out a lot. Business market, they're pissing a lot of business customers off because of the way they're doing things. The same. We're doing this, It doesn't matter what you like to do. We're going to do it like this. They're trying to push cloud too much. They're trying to push Office 365 too much. They're trying to push Windows Azure too much. And as much as that's really great, they're really great technologies. Don't push people towards that. Just scale back. Things like TechNet as well. I mean, don't piss off your core business, your core customers by getting rid of TechNet, because TechNet is fantastic, and they've probably lost a lot of customers by doing that. And I know there was a lot of pirates on it, but it was a bloody good resource for the likes of us that actually used it for the purposes that it was intended for. So yes, that's kind of my take on Microsoft and how Microsoft have come forwards and where they are today, I guess. Anything to end on is I will be doing some game giveaways. I've got some keys to go out for things like Battlefield 3 and that kind of stuff. So stay tuned in the next coming weeks for that. Also buy a t-shirt. There's some t-shirts kicking around. The last week when I did my Spin Tires demo, I mentioned I wasn't going to get Black Ops 2, which was completely an erroneous thing, because Black Ops 2 was the last Call of Duty that came out, and obviously the new one's Ghosts, so I won't be buying Ghosts, but I've already got Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 was crap. Black Ops 2 was the last last Call of Duty I ever bought, and Call of Duty Ghosts will just be the same old shit, different day. I might buy it maybe 5 months down the line when it's cheaper, and then play the single player. But I certainly won't be buying it when it comes out, because I won't be paying the 35 odd quid. I will, however, be buying Battlefield 4, because it could go one of two ways. Battlefield 4, it could go the Medal of Honor Warfighter kind of way, which was great, which I've just finished a single player of, by the way. If you haven't got Medal of Honor Warfighter, just buy it for the single player, because you can pick it up for tuppence halfpenny now. So good, such a great single player campaign. Ignore the multiplayer, because the multiplayer is shit. The single player, fucking amazing, so good, especially the ending, just great. Just go out and buy it. It's fantastic for that. But yeah, Battlefield 4 could go one of two ways. It could go Battlefield 3, or it could go the way of Medal of Honor Warfighter. I'm hoping it goes the way of Battlefield 3, and it stays there for 2 years. They don't dick around with it, and it's great, because Battlefield 3 is fucking amazing. The community's great, the sport is great. It is really, really good. Battlefield 4 though could go the way of Medal of Honor Warfighter, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to take off. I want it to be good. I want it to be good both for the company. I want it to be good for me as a gamer. But yes, apart from that, I shall catch you in a later video.